The restaurant was packed, the kind of upscale place where waiters wore black ties and the menu had no prices. My 28th birthday dinner. Mom had insisted on celebrating here, though I'd suggested somewhere quieter. The table was set for 6. Mom, Dad, my brother Cameron, his wife Valerie, my girlfriend Sophie, and me. Cameron arrived late, as usual, talking loudly on his phone about some business deal. He wore an expensive suit that screamed success. Dad's face lit up the moment Cameron walked in. "There's my star," Dad boomed, standing to hug him. I stayed seated, picking at the breadbasket. Sophie squeezed my hand under the table. She knew how these family dinners went. Cameron finally hung up and joined us, flashing that confident smile everyone loved. "Sorry I'm late. Investor call ran long. You know how it is." He glanced at me. "Oh wait, maybe you don't." The table went quiet for half a second. Then Dad laughed. "Cameron, be nice. It's your brother's birthday." But his tone suggested he found it funny too. I forced a smile. "No worries. Glad you could make it." Dinner started normally enough. Mom asked about Sophie's job at the hospital. Valerie talked about their recent trip to Tuscany. I listened mostly, contributing when asked direct questions. Then Dad ordered champagne. "A toast," he announced, raising his glass. "To my sons. Cameron, who just closed a $15 million deal with his tech startup." Everyone clapped. Cameron nodded, humble but clearly pleased. I waited for Dad to mention me, to say something about my work. Instead he paused, looking at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. "Pity. Disappointment. And to Alex," he finally said. "May you figure things out soon." The table fell silent. Sophie's grip on my hand tightened. "Figure things out." I've been running my own consulting business for 3 years. It wasn't flashy like Cameron's startup, but I was doing fine. Making good money, helping small businesses with their digital strategies. "Thanks, Dad," I said quietly, lifting my glass. We all drank, but the champagne tasted bitter. Cameron launched into a story about his company TechVantage. How they were revolutionizing data analytics. How investors were throwing money at them. How they just hired their 50th employee. Dad hung on every word, asking questions, beaming with pride. I might as well have been invisible. The main course arrived. I'd ordered the salmon. It looked perfect, but I'd lost my appetite. Sophie leaned close and whispered, "Want to leave early?" I shook my head. Running away would just prove Dad's point, that I couldn't handle the pressure, that I was weak compared to Cameron. So I stayed, cutting my fish into tiny pieces, moving them around my plate. "How's the consulting thing going?" Valerie asked, probably trying to be polite. "It's going well," I said. "Just signed 3 new clients this month. Small businesses mostly, but they're growing fast." "That's nice," she said, but her tone suggested it wasn't that impressive. Cameron jumped in. "Small businesses, huh? That's where I started too. But you gotta think bigger, Alex. Scale is everything. You can't stay small forever." "I'm not trying to stay small. I'm building something sustainable." "Sustainable is code for playing it safe," Cameron said, grinning like he was joking. But I heard the judgment underneath. Dad nodded along. "Your brother has a point. You're too cautious, Alex. Always have been. Sometimes you need to take risks." I set down my fork. "I take risks. Just calculated ones." "That's the problem," Dad said, his voice rising slightly. "You calculate too much. You overthink. Look at Cameron. He jumps in with both feet and wins big." I felt my face getting hot. Sophie touched my arm, warning me to stay calm. But something inside me was cracking. "Dad, I'm doing fine. I don't need to be Cameron." "No one's saying you need to be him," Dad said. "But you could learn from him. He's actually building something meaningful." As if what I was doing didn't matter. As if helping small business owners succeed was worthless compared to Cameron's flashy tech company. "I think what Alex does is impressive," Sophie said firmly. He's helped dozens of businesses grow. That matters. Dad waved her off. Of course it matters. But let's be honest. Consulting is just a fancy word for freelancing. It's not a real company. The words hit me like a punch. Not a real company. 3 years of work, dismissed in one sentence. You know what? I said, my voice shaking. I don't need this. I stood up, pulling out my wallet. Dad frowned. Sit down, Alex. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm leaving. Thanks for dinner, Mom. I dropped $200 on the table and turned to go. Dad's chair scraped back. That's your problem right there. You run away when things get tough. You're a failure, Alex. Look at your brother. He's actually successful. The restaurant went silent. Every head turned toward our table. I stood frozen, those words echoing in my skull. You're a failure. Actually successful. My own father. At my birthday dinner. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. My throat was too tight, my vision blurring at the edges. Sophie grabbed her purse and followed me out. I could hear Mom saying something, her voice upset, but I didn't stop. The valet brought my car. I tipped him and got in, Sophie sliding into the passenger seat. Neither of us spoke as I drove through the city streets. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Alex, Sophie finally said. I'm sorry. Don't. He had no right to say those things. But he did. And everyone heard. I parked outside my apartment building and just sat there, engine off, staring straight ahead. The words kept replaying. You're a failure. Look at your brother. He's actually successful. Your dad was wrong, Sophie said. You're not a failure. You've built something real. Something you should be proud of. Then why does it feel like he's right? I finally looked at her. Why does it feel like I'm always going to be the disappointment? Sophie didn't have an answer. Neither did I. We went upstairs. I turned off my phone. I didn't want to see the messages I knew were coming. Mom apologizing, maybe Cameron trying to smooth things over, Dad pretending nothing happened. That night I made a decision. I was done. Done trying to win Dad's approval. Done comparing myself to Cameron. Done feeling like I wasn't enough. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 32 texts. I ignored all of them. Sophie had left early for her shift at the hospital, leaving a note. I love you. Call me when you're ready. I made coffee and sat at my desk staring at my laptop. My consulting business. The thing Dad had called, not a real company. I opened my client list. 23 active clients. Small businesses, yes, but they trusted me. They were succeeding because of the strategies I'd built for them. One client, a bakery owner named Patricia, had tripled her revenue in 6 months following my digital marketing plan. Another, a fitness studio, had expanded to 3 locations. These weren't failures. This was real impact. I pulled up my financials. Last year, I'd made $180,000. Not Cameron's millions, but solid. Comfortable. And I'd done it without investors, without fancy offices, without the pressure that came with rapid scaling. But Dad didn't see any of that. He only saw that I wasn't Cameron. My phone buzzed. Again. I finally answered. Alex, honey. I'm so sorry about last night. It's fine, Mom. It's not fine. Your father was completely out of line. I told him so. What did he say? She hesitated. He said he was just being honest. That sometimes tough love is necessary. Tough love. But I need some space, Mom. From all of you. Please don't shut us out. I'm not shutting you out. I just need time. I threw myself into work. For the next 6 months, I barely spoke to my family. Mom called weekly. I kept the conversations short. Cameron texted a few times, casual messages that never mentioned the dinner. Dad didn't contact me at all. Sophie worried I was isolating myself. You can't avoid them forever, she said one evening. Watch me, I replied. But isolation had its benefits. Without Dad's voice in my head, without the constant comparison to Cameron, I could finally think clearly. I realized something. I didn't want to build what Cameron had built. I didn't want the pressure, the investors, the flashy lifestyle. I wanted sustainability. I wanted to help people. I wanted to sleep at night without worrying about stock prices or board meetings. So I doubled down on my vision. I launched a group coaching program for small business owners. 20 people signed up at $5,000 each. $100,000 in revenue from a single program. I hired my first employee, a marketing coordinator named Bryce. We moved from my apartment office to a small shared workspace downtown. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. By month 4 of our estrangement, my business had grown 30%. By month 5, I was on track to hit $250,000 for the year. And then month 6 arrived. The month everything changed. Not for me. For Cameron. I was at a coffee shop reviewing proposals when Sophie called. "Have you seen the news?" she asked. "What news?" "About TechVantage. About your brother's company." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "It's all over the business sites. They're shutting down. Something about funding falling through and major losses." I hung up and Googled it. The headlines were brutal. TechVantage shuts down after failed Series C. Tech startup collapses, leaving employees jobless. Cameron Hayes' company tanks amid financial scandal. I read the articles. Apparently, TechVantage had been burning through cash faster than they were making it. Their big $15 million deal. It fell through after the client discovered inflated metrics. Investors pulled out. The company imploded in 3 weeks. Cameron had lost everything. The office, the employees, the dream. Worse, there were rumors of personal liability. He'd sign guarantees on loans. His house might be at risk. Part of me felt vindicated. The golden child had fallen. The success Dad worshipped had turned out to be smoke and mirrors. But another part felt bad. Cameron was still my brother. And failure, I knew, felt terrible no matter who you were. My phone rang. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the decline button. Then I answered. "Alex." His voice sounded different. "Muller." "Yeah, Dad. I need to talk to you about Cameron." "I know what happened," I said. "Did Mom tell you?" "No. I saw the news." Dad was quiet for a moment. Then. "He's in trouble, Alex. Real trouble. The company going under is one thing, but he's got personal debts. The house, their savings, it's all gone." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Question hung there. Was I? Honestly, I didn't know. "I don't wish him harm if that's what you're asking. I need your help." There it was. The real reason for the call. My help. Cameron needs money. To keep the house. To cover the debts. I've given him what I can, but it's not enough. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. "Let me get this straight. 6 months ago you called me a failure at my birthday dinner. You said Cameron was actually successful and I should be more like him. Now you're asking me for money. Alex, this isn't about that. It's exactly about that. He's your brother. And I'm your son. But that didn't stop you from humiliating me in front of everyone." Dad's voice hardened. "I didn't call to argue. I called because Cameron needs help. Can you help him or not?" Thought about saying no. About hanging up and letting them figure it out themselves. But something stopped me. "How much does he need?" $75,000. To cover the immediate debts and save the house. 75,000. Had that. The business was doing well, my savings were healthy. But lending it to Cameron. To the brother who'd looked down on me. To the family who'd dismissed everything I'd built. "I'll think about it," I said. "That's not a yes. It's not a no either. Give me a few days." I hung up before Dad could argue. Sophie came home an hour later. I told her everything. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know. Do you want to help them?" I poured us both wine and sat on the couch. Part of me wants to say no. To let them struggle the way I struggled. To prove that I'm not the failure Dad thinks I am. But But Cameron's still my brother. And maybe this is my chance to show Dad who I really am. Not by bragging. Not by throwing money around. But by being there when they actually need me. Sophie nodded slowly. That's generous. Maybe too generous. Maybe. I spent the next 3 days thinking. I ran the numbers. 75,000 was a lot, but I could afford it. More importantly, I could set terms. Make it clear this wasn't charity. On the 3rd day I called Dad back. I'll help Cameron, I said. But there are conditions. What conditions? First, this is a loan. Not a gift. He pays it back over 5 years at 3% interest. That's lower than any bank would give him. Okay. Second, I want a written contract. Signed by both of us. Fine. Third, Cameron has to meet with me. Face to face. And you need to be there too. Dad hesitated. Why? Because we need to talk. Talk. About what happened at my birthday. About how you both treated me. Alex. Those are my terms, Dad. Take them or leave them. Dad agreed. We set the meeting for Saturday afternoon at a neutral location. A small conference room at a business center I sometimes used for client meetings. I arrived first, setting up the contract paperwork on the table. My hands were steady, but my heart raced. This wasn't just about money. This was about respect. About finally being seen. Cameron and Dad arrived together. Cameron looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled, his face drawn. The confidence I'd always envied was gone, replaced by something that looked like shame. Hey, Alex, Cameron said quietly. Hey. We sat. The silence was thick. Finally, Dad spoke. Your brother appreciates what you're doing here. Does he? I looked at Cameron. Because I haven't heard him say it. Cameron met my eyes. I appreciate it. Really do. I'm in a bad spot, and I know I haven't been the best brother to you. You haven't. I know. I was arrogant. I thought I had it all figured out. Turns out I didn't. I pushed the contract across the table. 75,000. 5-year repayment at 3% interest. Payments start in 6 months to give you time to get back on your feet. Cameron picked up the contract, scanning it. This is fair. More than fair. I'm not trying to hurt you, Cameron. I'm trying to help. But I also need you to understand something. What? What you and Dad did to me at my birthday. It hurt. Deeply. And I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen just because you need money now. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Alex, let me finish. I looked between them. I've spent my whole life feeling like I wasn't good enough. Like no matter what I accomplished, it would never measure up to Cameron. And instead of supporting me, you reinforced that feeling. Both of you. Cameron looked down. You're right. I was a jerk. You were more than a jerk. You were condescending. You made me feel small. And Dad, you called me a failure in front of everyone. On my birthday. Dad's jaw tightened. I could see him struggling. Apologizing didn't come naturally to him. I was wrong, he finally said. The words sounded forced, but they were there. I let my pride in Cameron blind me to what you were achieving. And what I said that night, I was out of line. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was something. I need you both to understand, I continued. I'm successful too. Maybe not in the same way as Cameron was. But I've built something real. Something that helps people. And it's mine. I see that now, Cameron said. When my company collapsed, I realized how fragile it all was. The investors, the big office, the press coverage. It was all a house of cards. What you built is different. Solid. Sustainable. Dad nodded slowly. You were right to focus on sustainability. I see that now. I slid a pen toward Cameron. Sign the contract. And then we can move forward. Cameron signed. I countersigned. Dad witnessed. Just like that it was done. But the real transaction wasn't the money. It was the acknowledgement. The admission that I'd been right all along. That my path, though different, was valid. After they left, I sat in the conference room for a while, just processing. Sophie called. How did it go? Better than expected. Did they apologize? In their own way, yeah. How do you feel? Thought about it. Vindicated. But also sad. Sad that it took Cameron losing everything for Dad to see my worth. Maybe some people only learn the hard way. Maybe. That evening, I transferred the $75,000 to Cameron's account. He texted immediately. Got it. Thank you. I won't forget this. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the message, thinking about how much had changed in 6 months. I'd gone from feeling like a failure to being the one my family turned to in crisis. The irony wasn't lost on me. Over the next few weeks, things slowly normalized. Mom invited me and Sophie to Sunday dinner. I hesitated but eventually agreed. The meal was quiet, almost awkward. Dad was unusually subdued. Cameron barely spoke. But it was a start. How's the job search going? I asked Cameron between courses. Slow. Turns out having a failed startup on your resume doesn't impress people. You'll bounce back. He nodded. I'm thinking smaller this time. Maybe something in consulting. Smiled. Consulting's not so bad. Yeah, he said, meeting my eyes. I'm starting to realize that. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside. I want to show you something. He led me to his study and pulled out a photo album. Old pictures from when Cameron and I were kids. I was looking through these, Dad said. Remembering. Remembering what? How proud I was of both of you. Cameron was always so bold, so confident. But you were thoughtful. Careful. You thought things through. He paused. I mistook that for weakness. I was wrong. You made me feel like I didn't matter, I said quietly. Like unless I was flashy and bold like Cameron, I wasn't worth celebrating. I know. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. He closed the album. When Cameron's company collapsed, I realized something. Success isn't just about how high you climb. It's about whether you can sustain it. Whether you build something that lasts. That's what I've been trying to tell you. I should have listened. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then Dad did something he rarely did. He hugged me. Not the quick, awkward side hug he usually gave. Real hug. I'm proud of you, Alex. I should have said it sooner. Those words. The words I'd wanted to hear my entire life. They came 6 months too late and only after my brother's failure forced the comparison. But they still mattered. Thanks, Dad. As Sophie and I drove home that night, she asked, Do you feel better now? A little. Just a little. It's complicated. I'm glad Dad apologized. Glad Cameron sees things differently now. But part of me wonders if they would have ever acknowledged my success if Cameron hadn't failed first. Probably not, Sophie said honestly. But does that make their acknowledgement less real? I didn't have an answer. The truth was messy. Dad's pride in me was genuine now, but it had taken Cameron's collapse to trigger it. That reality stung. But maybe that's how growth works. Sometimes people only learn when their assumptions are shattered. Sometimes validation comes from unexpected places, at unexpected times. The important thing was moving forward. Not dwelling on the past hurt, but building something better in the present. 3 months later, my business hit a major milestone. I signed a contract with a regional chain of gyms to handle their entire digital marketing strategy. The contract was worth $300,000 over 2 years. It was the biggest deal I'd ever landed. Bigger than any single client Cameron had secured before TechVantage collapsed. Called Sophie first. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Then I called Mom. She cried happy tears and insisted on throwing a celebration dinner. Nothing fancy, I said. Something small. Whatever you want, sweetheart. I texted Cameron. Big news. Call me when you can. He called back within 5 minutes. I told him about the gym contract. Alex, that's amazing. Congratulations. Thanks. It's a game changer for the business. I'll bet. You've really built something special. I learned from watching you, I said. Both what to do and what not to do. He laughed, but it was a sad laugh. Fair enough. How are things going with you? Better. I actually got a job offer. Marketing director at a mid-size software company. Not glamorous, but steady. That's great, Cameron. Yeah. I'm learning to appreciate steady. We talked for a while longer. For the first time in years, it felt like we were actually brothers, not rivals. Not the golden child and the disappointment. Just two guys trying to figure life out. The celebration dinner was small. Just family and Sophie. Mom made my favorite meal. Dad gave a toast. To Alex, he said, raising his glass. Who proved that slow and steady wins the race. I'm proud of you, son. Everyone drank. And this time when Dad said he was proud, I actually believed him. Bryce, my marketing coordinator, became indispensable. He had this knack for understanding what clients needed before they even articulated it. Together, we streamlined operations, created templates for our most common services, and started scaling without losing the personal touch that made clients choose us in the first place. 6 months after the gym contract, we hired 2 more people, a graphic designer named Tessa and a social media specialist named Omar. My little consulting business was becoming a real agency. The thing Dad said would never happen was happening. We moved into a proper office space. Nothing extravagant. Just a clean, bright space in a good neighborhood with room for everyone to work comfortably. On moving day, Dad stopped by to see the new place. This is nice, he said, looking around. Really nice. Thanks. How many employees now? 4, including me. He nodded slowly. I was wrong about you, Alex. Completely wrong. I know. I'm trying to do better. To see things more clearly. I appreciate that. We stood by the window, looking out at the city. Cameron starts his new job next week, Dad said. I know. He told me. He's different now. Humbled. I think the failure was good for him in some ways. I understood what Dad meant. Cameron's collapse had stripped away the arrogance, revealed the person underneath. Someone more genuine, more relatable. Failure can teach you things success never will, I said. Dad looked at me. That's wise. I learned it the hard way. When you called me a failure, I could have let it destroy me. Instead, I used it as fuel. I'm sorry I ever said that. I know you are. We stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Dad said, Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Really forgive me? Thought about it. I think I already have. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. What happened will always be part of our story. I can live with that, Dad said. And somehow, so could I. Cameron paid his first loan installment right on schedule. $1,500 deposited into my account with a note. First of many. Thank you again. His new job was going well. He'd adjusted to being an employee instead of a CEO. And from what he told me, he was actually enjoying it. Less pressure, he explained over coffee one Saturday. I don't wake up in the middle of the night panicking about payroll anymore. That sounds healthier. It is. Valerie's happier too. She was so stressed when the company was falling apart. Now we're just normal people with normal problems. Normal is underrated, I said. I'm starting to see that. He paused. I've been wanting to ask you something. What? How did you do it? How did you stay so grounded while building your business? I considered the question. I think it's because I never wanted what you wanted. I didn't want to be a CEO of a massive company. I wanted to help people and make a good living doing it. The ambition was different. I wish I'd understood that earlier. Got caught up in the hype. In proving I could build something big. I forgot to ask if it was sustainable or even if it made me happy. Are you happy now? He smiled. Getting there. It's humbling to start over, but yeah, I think I'm happier than I was at the peak of TechVantage. We talked for another hour. About life, about family, about the paths we'd each chosen. When we finally left, he hugged me. Thanks for not giving up on me. You're my brother. I'll always be here. A year after the infamous birthday dinner, Mom insisted on a do-over. A proper celebration, she called it. To make up for last time. I was hesitant. The memory of that night still stung. But Sophie convinced me to give it a chance. They've changed, she said. You've all changed. Maybe it's time to let go of the past. So we gathered again. Same restaurant, same table, same people. But everything felt different. Dad arrived first this time, reserved the table, made sure everything was perfect. Cameron and Valerie came next, bearing gifts. For your actual birthday, Cameron said. Since we ruined the last one. I opened the present. A custom leather portfolio with my company logo embossed on the front. For all those client meetings, Cameron explained. Wow. This is really nice. You deserve nice things. When everyone was seated, Dad stood to make a toast. I tensed, remembering the last time. To Alex, Dad began. Who taught us all a lesson in perseverance and integrity. You've built something remarkable, son. Not through shortcuts or hype, but through hard work and genuine value. I'm proud of you. I should have said that a long time ago, but I'm saying it now. Happy birthday. The table erupted in applause. I felt tears prick my eyes but blinked them back. Thank you, I managed. The dinner was everything the last one wasn't. People asked about my business, listened to my stories, celebrated my wins. Cameron didn't dominate the conversation. Dad didn't compare us. We were just a family, enjoying a meal together. As we finished dessert, Dad leaned over. Better than last time. Much better. Good. Because you deserve better. 2 years after starting my agency, we hit 7 figures in revenue. $1 million. Felt surreal. I called a team meeting to share the news. We did it, I announced. Thanks to everyone's hard work, we're officially $1 million company. Team cheered. Bryce high-fived Tessa. Omar pumped his fist. This calls for celebration, Bryce said. Drinks on me. We went to a nearby bar that evening. My small but mighty team toasting our success. I looked around at their faces. Young, enthusiastic, talented people I'd brought together. This was what success looked like. Not a flashy office or press coverage or investor meetings. But a group of people working together, helping clients, making a living, building something that mattered. My phone buzzed. Cameron. Heard you hit the $1 million mark. Congrats, bro. That's huge. Thanks. How'd you hear? Mom told Dad, Dad told me. We're all proud of you. Appreciate it. Remember when I said you should think bigger? Guess you didn't need my advice after all. We all find our own path, I said. Yeah, we do. After the call, Sophie slid her arm around me. How does it feel? Honestly. Feels quiet. In a good way. Quiet. I don't need to shout about this. I don't need everyone to know. People who matter know. And that's enough. That's very you, she said, kissing my cheek. Quiet success. The best kind. We stayed at the bar until late, celebrating with the team. When I finally got home, I sat on my balcony with a beer, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Cameron was probably sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. Dad was probably telling his friends about his 2 successful sons. And I was here, content with the empire I'd built. Not loud. Not flashy. But mine. The loan repayments kept coming like clockwork. Cameron never missed one. After 2 years, he'd paid back nearly $30,000. We'd gotten into a routine of monthly coffee meetings. Part brotherly catch-up, part informal mentoring. He'd ask advice about his career. I'd share insights from running the agency. I've been thinking about starting something small on the side, he said one morning. Like what? Consulting. Using what I learned from TechVantage, the mistakes and the wins, to help other startup founders avoid the pitfalls I hit. That's a good idea. Think there's a market for it. Definitely. Lots of founders need guidance from someone who's been through it. Would you be okay with it? Me stepping into your world? Smiled. Consulting is a big world. There's room for both of us. Thanks. That means a lot. He paused. I've learned so much from watching you these past couple years. How you grow sustainably. How you prioritize people over profits. How you stay grounded. You're giving me too much credit. I'm not. You're living proof that you don't have to burn out or crash to be successful. Cameron launched his side consulting business 3 months later. He called it Second Chance Strategies. I helped him set up his website and connected him with a few contacts. Within 6 months, he had 5 clients. It's not going to make me rich, he told me. But it's fulfilling. And I'm in control. That's what matters. I finally get what you meant about sustainable success. It's not about how fast you grow. It's about building something that can last. Took you long enough to figure that out, I teased. Better late than never. 3 years after the birthday dinner, Sophie and I got engaged. I proposed on a quiet beach at sunset. Simple, romantic, perfect. When I called to share the news, Mom cried happy tears. Finally. I was wondering when you'd ask her. I wanted to wait until the time was right. It's right. So right. She's perfect for you. Dad was happy too, in his reserved way. Congratulations, son. Sophie's a good woman. Cameron and Valerie invited us over for dinner to celebrate. To the engaged couple, Cameron toasted. May your marriage be as solid as Alex's business. Everyone laughed. It was a good moment. Full circle moment. Remember our birthday dinner 3 years ago? Said. Cameron winced. How could I forget? I was such an ass. We all were, Dad added quietly. But look at us now, I said. We got through it. Because of you, Dad said. You held us accountable. Made us face our mistakes. Most people would have cut us off completely. You're my family. I wasn't going to give up on you. Lucky for us, Cameron said. We spent the evening reminiscing. About the highs and lows, the fights and reconciliations, the lessons learned. When Sophie and I finally left, Dad walked us to the car. You know what I realized, he said. What? You were always successful. I just couldn't see it because I was measuring you by the wrong metrics. What changed? You didn't change. I did. I learned to see success differently. That's all I ever wanted, Dad. To be seen for who I am. I see you now. And I'm proud of the man you've become. The wedding was 6 months later. Small ceremony, close friends and family only. Cameron was my best man. Never thought I'd see the day, he joked during his speech. My little brother, getting married before me. I got married 4 years ago, Valerie called out. You know what I mean. Everyone laughed. Seriously though, Cameron continued. Alex has taught me more about life than anyone. About integrity, perseverance, and staying true to yourself even when others doubt you. He's not just my brother. He's my hero. I felt my throat tighten. Dad stood next. His speech was shorter but equally meaningful. Alex, I haven't always been the father you deserved. I focused on the wrong things. Celebrated the wrong achievements. But you never gave up on me even when I gave up on you. Thank you for teaching an old man new tricks. I love you, son. The reception was perfect. Dancing, laughter, joy. Everything I'd hoped for. At one point, I found myself alone with Cameron on the terrace. Crazy how things change, he said. Yeah. 3 years ago, I thought I had everything figured out. Now I realize I didn't know anything. We were both learning. But you learned the right lessons. I had to fail first. Shrugged. Maybe that's how it needed to happen. Your failure led to growth. For both of us. For the whole family. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the party through the windows. Thank you, Cameron said suddenly. For what? For the loan. For not holding grudges. For being a better person than I deserved. You're my brother. That's what family does. After the wedding, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The agency continued growing. We hit our 5-year anniversary with 12 employees and consistent 7-figure revenue. Cameron finished paying off his loan. The final payment came with a note, paid in full with gratitude. You saved me when I needed it most. I deposited the check and texted back, "Proud of you for seeing it through." His consulting business was thriving too. He'd found his niche, helping failed founders rebuild. People who'd crashed and needed someone who understood. "It's therapy as much as consulting," he told me. "I get it because I've lived it." Dad retired that same year. He and Mom started traveling, something they'd always talked about but never did. They sent postcards from Italy, Japan, New Zealand. Each one signed, "Proud of our sons." One postcard from Paris particularly stood out. Dad had written on the back, "Standing at the Eiffel Tower, thinking about how I almost ruined my relationship with you over my own stubbornness. Grateful every day that you gave me a second chance. Love, Dad." I taped it to my office wall, a reminder that people can change. That forgiveness, though difficult, is possible. That family is worth fighting for. Sophie and I bought a house. A modest but lovely place with a yard and a spare room for the baby we were planning. The agency moved to an even bigger space. We were hiring 2 more people next month. Cameron's second chance strategies expanded to include workshops and online courses. He was becoming known as an expert in sustainable business growth. Funny how the universe works. 5 years after the birthday dinner that nearly destroyed our family, we gathered for another celebration. Dad's 70th birthday. The restaurant was different this time. Mom's choice, somewhere with meaning rather than status. We sat around a large table, 3 generations now. Cameron and Valerie's daughter played on an iPad. Sophie's hand rested on her pregnant belly. Dad looked around at all of us, his eyes wet. "I want to say something," he announced. We all quieted. 5 years ago I said terrible things to Alex. Things I'll regret for the rest of my life. I called him a failure when he was anything but. I compared him to Cameron in the cruelest way possible. He paused, gathering himself. But Alex did something remarkable. He didn't just forgive me. He showed me what real success looks like. Not the flashy kind that crashes and burns, but the sustainable kind that lasts. He raised his glass. To Alex, the son who taught his father that success isn't measured by how high you climb, but by how well you stand when the winds blow. We all drank. I felt tears rolling down my cheeks but didn't bother wiping them away. Cameron stood next. "I'll keep this short. Alex, you're the better man. Always have been. And I'm grateful to call you my brother." More tears. This time from everyone. Mom hugged me. "My sweet boy. I always knew you were special." After dinner, Dad pulled me aside one last time. "I know I've apologized before, but I need to say it again. Sorry, Alex. Truly sorry." "I know, Dad. Do you forgive me? Really forgive me?" I looked at him, this man who'd hurt me so deeply but who'd also grown so much. "Yes, Dad. I forgive you." He hugged me tight and I hugged him back. Today, 10 years after that awful birthday dinner, I'm sitting in my corner office at the agency. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary next month. 23 employees now. Multiple 7-figure years. Industry recognition. Awards. But none of that matters as much as what's on my desk. A framed photo from my 30th birthday celebration, the redo dinner. Everyone's smiling. Dad has his arm around me. Cameron's giving me a thumbs up. Sophie's laughing at something. It's perfect. Not because it erases the past, but because it shows how far we've come. My phone buzzes. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you, son." "Thanks, Dad. Love you too. Love you more." I hang up and swivel to look out the window at the city below. My city. Where I built something real. Something lasting. Something mine. The quiet kid who got screamed at for being a failure grew up to define success on his own terms. And in the end, that's the only success that matters. Cameron's company collapsed. Mine thrived. Not because I was smarter or worked harder, but because I understood something fundamental. Success isn't about impressing others. It's about building something sustainable that reflects your values. Dad learned that lesson the hard way. Cameron did too. But I'd known it all along. I just needed them to finally see it. My assistant knocks. Your 2 o'clock is here. Send them in. I close the photo frame and turn to greet my client. Another small business owner who needs help growing sustainably. Another person I can guide away from the crash and burn mentality that destroyed Cameron. Another opportunity to prove that slow and steady really does win the race. The door opens. I stand, extend my hand and smile. This is my life. This is my success. And nobody can take that away. Not Dad. Not Cameron. Not anyone. Because it was never about them. It was always about me. About staying true to myself, even when the world said I was wrong. About building something that would last long after the applause faded. I was never a failure. I was just playing a different game. And in the end I won.